pedigree questions. Here in this question, in the pedigree diagram, it shows Tay-Sachs disease. Tay-Sachs disease. It is autosomal disease and it is recessive disease. This disease is responsible for destruction of nerves. First question here, what do the Roman numerals in the pedigree diagram represent? Roman numerals here, 1 and 2, represent the generations. Generation 1, parents. Generation 2, the offspring. Question number 2, how many of the offspring in this example are carriers? Okay, you have to look at generation 2 because it represents the offspring. But it is a tricky question here because the carriers in offspring not have shaded. When the individual have shaded, it is a carrier. But in offspring, no have shaded. So you have to predict the genotype of this disease. I wrote here the genotypes. This question says, this pedigree diagram says, the parents have shaded, so they are carriers. So they have heterozygous alleles. And I wrote here letter T. T capital T small is a carrier. T capital T small is a carrier. How did I know? Because circle and squares are half shaded. So they are carriers. So they have to get heterozygous alleles. And I cross them to get alleles of offspring. And it produced 50% heterozygous and 25% homozygous dominant, which has no disease, and one homozygous recessive has the disease. One has the disease 25%, while 50% are carrier, they are heterozygous. So I wrote here 50% two carriers and 25 has the disease. It means one has the disease. Question number 2, pedigram 2. Here it shows a disease. It's called polydactyly. Polydactyly disorder, it means you have extra fingers. Extra fingers. This disease is a dominant genetic disorder. Polydactyly is a dominant genetic disorder. Polydactyly, you have extra fingers or toes. In polydactyly disorder pedigree, what are the gender and the possible genotypes represented by a black circle? Here, black circle means it shows the phenotype or the disorder because it is shaded. Circles mean females. Shaded circle means has the disorder. Can you guess what is the genotype of females here? Yes, heterozygous. Heterozygous. Because only one dominant allele shows the phenotype or the disorder, polydactyly, because it is a dominant disorder. Dominant disorder, it means the dominant allele shows this disorder. This pedigree shows Tay-Sachs disease, and they are recessive diseases. What are the genotypes of parents? It's enough to say homo or heterozygous. Tay-Sachs disease are recessive, and they are here half shaded. It means they are carriers. They don't have disease, but they are carriers. So they carry recessive allele and one dominant allele. It means they are heterozygous. Both parents are heterozygous. Pedigree here shows polydactyly disorder again. And polydactyly disorder is a dominant disorder. So when you have only one dominant allele, the phenotype of polydactyly expressed. Polydactyly is a dominant disorder, must have capital letters. So homozygous recessive females here, homozygous recessive females here don't show the disorder. In offspring or second generation 2, which females here have no disorder? 2, 3, generation 2, 3, and generation 2, 6. They have no disorder because they are homozygous recessive. They are not shaded. They are not shaded. Here, this pedigree shows Tay-Sachs disease. And the question says, what is the possible genotypes and phenotypes of a children born to a marriage between member 4 in generation 2, 4, and the carrier of the disease? When you see here, number 4 in generation 2, its genotype also means it is a carrier. When it crosses with a carrier, they have the same sequence of offspring like in this pedigree chart. They will have 25 has a disease, 50 carriers, and 25 has no disease. Okay, this pedigree shows polydactyly disorder, and it is a dominant disorder. It means you have to have one dominant allele to have this disorder. What is the genotypes of the following individuals in generation 1, individual 2 in generation 1, and individuals 2 and 3 and 4 in generation 2? In generation 1, you can see individual 2, she's a female, and she is shaded. So it has the disorder. We wrote heterozygous dominant. Heterozygous dominant. It means she has only one dominant allele, not two. Why? Because their offspring shows a high number of individuals have no disorder. Have no disorder. Okay, generation 2, individuals 2 and 3 and 4, 2 shaded, so it's going to have heterozygous dominant because she inherited only one dominant allele from her mom. Her dad has no dominant allele because he has no disease. So, two individual 2 in generation 2 is heterozygous dominant because she inherited only one dominant allele from her mom. Individual 3 in generation 2, not shaded, so is going to be homozygous recessive. Homozygous recessive, she doesn't have a dominant allele, so she doesn't have that disorder. Individual 4 is a male and it is not shaded, so he has homozygous recessive. He has no dominant allele because he doesn't show the disorder. And this disorder is a dominant disorder. You must have the dominant allele.